Weir does a very good job of basically making the physics understandable as long as you make a reasonable effort to go ahead and understand what's happening.
Sparking scientific curiosity is an important aspect to to all of his works, and I love that he does that.
You guys can decide for yourself. Is Jazz a flawed character? Is she expertly developed?
Yeah. Welcome everyone to the Tutor Ramble podcast with a little bit of a different guest. So I'm one of your hosts, Richard.
And I'm Rich, and I happen to have the honor of being Richard's dad.
Well, last time I had my dad on for the podcast, it was with our other friend Justin for Project Hail Mary. That was a video. We had some technical problems with that one, but it came out. We got it together eventually.
And it was a pretty good crew, okay? And a lot of differing views on how the novel went, what was important, what it meant.
And the time before that was also our review on The Martian. Today we're here to review the other Andy Weir book that is less known, a little unsung novel. We have Artemis by Andy Weir. Most people at this point in the book space and sci-fi fans will know about The Martian, mainly because of the movie. Then you have Project Hail Mary, which is considered Andy Weir's magnum opus so far, and with also a upcoming movie adaptation. But Artemis came out a little bit before and actually won 2018's Dragon Award for Best Sci-Fi, and then the following year in 2019, the Geffen Award for Best Translated Science Fiction Novel.
Really? Very good.
Also has a 3.69 on Goodreads, if you care about what Goodreads says. So this is the lowest rated Andy Weir book on Goodreads, at least.
And probably what adds to this idea of the low profile of this is that both The Martian and Project Hail Mary were very global in scope. I mean, they encompassed the entire world. They encompassed whole countries and nations competing against one another, different species. They were huge in terms of the scope of it. This is fairly small scope. I mean, it's a moon colony. It's fairly local. It's a mystery in a lot of ways. It's a resolution of a fairly small slice of life, not the bigger slices of life that The Martian and Hail Mary take on.
To give a little bit of a spoiler-free pitch of what the book's about, this book follows our main character, Jazz, who is a Moonie. She lives on the moon. In the not-so-distant future, humans have colonized the moon. We have little bubbles up there. Jazz is one of our main characters. She's down on her luck. She, poor, doing some nefarious things on the side and is trying to make money quickly, and she falls into a plot to a little bit of a heist on the moon to make money. That is your story. Won't go any further than that. You'll have to read it for yourself to find out what happens after that.
Now, once again, as in all the Weir novels, I mean, it's very, very strong on physics. You have to basically struggle along like I did to understand the physics principles, but Weir does a very good job of basically making the physics understandable as long as you make a reasonable effort to go ahead and understand what's happening.
Who do you think, of course, obviously, if you're a fan of Andy Weir's books, like maybe you should give this one a shot. But other than that, what type of person do you think would like this book?
Okay, I think this particular book, I think would cater towards a younger audience. I mean, there's some loose language in there. The F word is used periodically. It could be offensive to some of the older readers that might be in there, or people that are a bit more staid like me. However, it's realistic. I mean, I'm around. Unfortunately for them, I have to be around younger people all the time, and this is the way young people talk. And if they're a bit bitter, and Jazz is a character who's basically trying to struggle to survive, so she's got frustrations going on there. So out of that frustration comes some of the harsh language and some of her interactions with people. So it's realistic. However, I think it's probably going to tend towards a younger audience that's going to enjoy it more than, say, older types.
Fair enough. I would give another recommendation of, if you really liked your kind of fantasy heist stories that we've covered here before, if you're a big fan of the Thousand Deaths of Artemis, if you like the Lies of Locke Lamora, and you want a sci-fi heist, you can give this one a shot. Overall, though, what is your overall score, spoiler free, of course, of this book?
Look, I give it a 3.5, and
Good.
some of that is my one thing is less global than the other two, so it doesn't stand up to Weir's normal magnus opus type of approach. Look, it's very well done. I think there's some flaws in it, which I'll go ahead and get into as we go into the various ratings and the sections of it. But 3.5, I think it's a good novel. It kept my attention, and that's one of the key things I look at. Hey, am I going to fall asleep? Am I struggling to finish a chapter? No. I mean, it moves right along. The plot moves. It doesn't dwell on dull stuff too often. And it introduces the characters, and particularly it's pretty good at introducing new characters throughout the novel. There's, of course, as you get into it, you start to see the same characters over and over. But they're well introduced. It's well crafted. I think it's a good novel. Is it going to be like Don Quixote? Is it going to be like 100 Years of Solitude? I mean, some of the great novels of our time? No.
There are not many of those.
There's not many of those. So I give it a 3.5, which for me, I think is a pretty good reading.
Yeah. Well, I gave it a 3.25, somewhat good. This is definitely my lowest score for an Andy Weir novel.
Okay.
And we'll get into it. Overall, my lowest rating is the characters. That's probably where my biggest gripe is going to be, and we'll discuss that later in the book. Nick, if you don't mind, our collective scores. So if you're interested in what we think about the categories, they're on screen here. But yeah, this has been the spoiler-free section. So if you don't want to be spoiled, click off now. And if you want to pick up the book, you can click the link down in the description. We have an affiliate link where you can purchase the book. Helps the channel. You get a book. Win-win. So.
And look, I have to add something here. If you're on a long plane ride, which I frequently am on, this novel pretty much fills the bill for, a 4 to 5 hour plane trip. And it will make the flight last a lot more pleasantly.
Good. This is all right.
Absolutely.
You've heard of the term a plane movie, like a movie you'd watch on a plane.
Exactly. This is a book you would read on the plane. Okay. Absolutely. Very good. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get right into spoilers here. Start right off with emotional impact. How did this book make you feel? How'd you feel it came across in those emotional moments?
Okay. I would have to rate it a little bit lower than, say, 3.5. Like, I would give it a 3. Okay.
3. Fairly neutral then.
It's fairly neutral. Okay. It comes along pretty good. Jazz and her emotions and what she's trying to do don't come across as noble as one might think, but of course she's a criminal in that respect. So in that respect, I wouldn't say like it's not a huge emotional impact. The best emotional impact I felt was for Jazz's dad. I mean, I grew to have a lot of respect for him. He's having a tough time being a father, and that's portrayed very well in Weir's description of him. So I think that's pretty good. So I'd say overall pretty good.
Was there any particular scene that either stood out to you of like you felt emotionally connected to it, or a scene that was probably supposed to that didn't land for you as well?
Well, I guess in one way, one thing that struck me was close to the end of the novel, Jazz is trying to be more understanding of her father, trying to repay her father for some of the damage she's done to his laboratory in the past. And he basically goes into soliloquies, how he wasn't the best dad ever. He had to learn as he went along. He did his best, but he had a lot of respect for his daughter. And she basically breaks down and goes into his arms, cries. And that to me, of course, I'm a father, and you don't get very many moments like that. But that struck me as heartfelt, genuine, and very authentic.
Right. I also quite liked those scenes. The things that didn't land as well. So I gave it a 3.5. I thought it was good. What it's going for of the action intense. Like, are you shocked at the turns and things like that? So, like, I think the emotional twist. I was like, mainly the big twists, 2 twists of the novel of you think it's going to be a heist and the heist just goes completely wrong.
Absolutely.
And then the final twist of
Well, there's several moments where you think it's going along pretty good, but it adds to the novel that things go bad.
Yeah.
Okay. And
you can never have a heist that just goes well.
And how does she get out of them? And she's squirming by every step of the way. Okay. To go ahead and try to fix this broken escapade that she's got.
The scenes that just do okay for me, that I think I should have been more emotionally invested into, but it just wasn't. I think it's part of the nature of the film, is Jazz's self-sacrifice scene at the end.
Yeah.
To me, I felt the hand of the author on that moment of,
sure,
especially because for most of this book, I'm not a big fan of Jazz as a character, and she's not a particularly noble person. She's not, I don't think, very compelling character. She comes across as grating. I feel like her noble sacrifice at the end is a big push to try and get people on the character. Like, she's actually not the worst.
Yeah.
Like, she's incredibly selfish, and not just selfish, like, just rude, mean to everyone in her life.
Oh, absolutely.
And
I agree.
And so by the end of it, she's doing all this for money. And so how does Andy Weir get to the end of the book where people don't hate her? How do we get where she's kind of the hero? And I feel like the only way for that was she nobly sacrificed herself to save the city. Tried to.
Yeah,
to me, that felt a little more hollow.
I have to give Weir a little bit of credit there. I mean, I think he does it pretty well with the aspect that there wasn't any time in that moment for her to make a decision or not. Like, it'd be one thing if you would get such a greater sense of nobility, sacrifice, if she had to dwell on it several seconds, dwell on it maybe a minute. Does she do this? Does she not? She only, at that particular moment, and we're not going to spoil it for the readers.
No, we're in the spoiler section.
We're in the
They've
spoiler
read
section.
it. We could fully spoil it.
Oh, we can spoil it.
We're in the spoilers.
Well, let's spoil.
Good.
Anyway, so the only way she can get this valve turned, to go ahead and turn the oxygen back onto the plant, is basically to break out of this hermetic bubble that she's got. And she has less than a minute left to actually do it. And there's the only way to do it is basically to go ahead and use this spike to go ahead and actually puncture out, put this thing inside of a valve, and use arm pressure to go ahead and twist it open. It's the only way they can get it. Well, they're down to seconds and minutes to go ahead and actually turn the oxygen back on to this facility so that not everybody dies. I don't think Weir had a whole bunch of time and pages to go ahead and dwell on this. So he basically did it in a flash. But once again, the point where basically you have something unexpected occur in a novel. You know, a lot of times you're going along in a novel and you think, oh, I know what's going to happen. Oh, I've got this figured out. Okay, they're going to do this, going to do that. This novel is full of those twists and turns where something happens which is unexpected. And it's one of the things that makes a novel very memorable in that respect. So
what was a particular twist that kind of got you, that you found very fun?
Yeah, one of the twists I found that was pretty good was she's got everything planned. She's going to destroy the harvesters, and she's got extra oxygen tanks so she can stay longer out on the moon's surface. Well, she hasn't plunked down, and a harvester backs over the oxygen tanks. Oh, fudge! And now she says something more cute than that, but that in itself, that's kind of the beginning for me of these things that you don't anticipate. Okay, and that makes things go wrong. So that was one of the cute things, which I think was realizable. It was realistic in that respect, and Weir did that well. And it was something that, yeah, that could happen. Absolutely, could definitely happen. So,
well, as far as these emotional scenes, you were a little bit more neutral. You weren't as emotionally invested in it, but some of these twists did get you. I thought it was a little bit better than that. Like, there were a couple of those scenes that I thought were good, but some things were lacking.
What was an example of the scene for you where the emotion was strongest?
I think the one you mentioned with her dad was pretty strong. Yeah, I really liked those moments. It was also the smaller scenes between I think her and Dale, which worked pretty well. The boy who her friend who cheated, who
who's gay,
and cheated with her boyfriend.
Yeah,
I thought the back and forth between it was also the moment of she's pretty rude and awful to everybody, but to Dale it makes sense, like it's justifiable.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and so those moments, like you felt, I was more
really
tied to those moments.
To be truthful, I found that Dale's character, while Dale grew as a character, I thought it was the weakest development of all. Like you wonder at the beginning, it's like, hey, why is Jazz so down on this guy? Did he cheat on her? No, he left her. Well, and then it cuts up, oh, he left her because he's gay. All right, okay, so there can't be anything really substantial developed there. But you don't really get...
Dale was her friend.
Exactly.
And her boyfriend, basically, Dale cheated on... basically, Dale stole her boyfriend, and her boyfriend cheated on her with Dale.
So, anyway, but that takes a while. It takes a while to develop that character. Yeah. So I felt that was the weakest development of any character that you had in the novel.
Well, we'll get into characters here in a little bit, but let's go into thought-provoking sections. What did you think this book had to say, and did it do it well?
Well, let me go into something a bit more extended, and tell me to shut up if I don't. But there's a theme which follows weird novels, and it begins with The Martian, where basically you got two struggles going on. How's Mark Watley going to get off Mars alive?
We'll try to be spoiler-free for both The Martian and Project Hail Mary.
Okay, but then also you have a struggle on Earth between these competing countries which have a space program. How do they get together? How do they work things out? They compete with one another. And essentially what we're saying is that, hey, here on Earth, we compete against one another. We nations are jealous of one another. We want each other's resources. But in space, we can cooperate. We can actually be better than ourselves. We can be a world as opposed to a non-functioning group of nations. Well, when you go into Hail Mary, it goes even further. Now you're talking about the world is now together. Okay, they're cooperating. But now you have to get cooperation with something else. And Weir basically portrays that, hey, we in space can actually be better than what we are on Earth. We can actually cooperate with beings from some other universe, some other planet. This is what
space is the great reset. Space start from fresh.
Yeah, space is the place where we can kind of come together as a real world. Okay, in Artemis, you have something. It's following along that theme here. We're talking about not the Earth anymore. We're talking about a group of very disparate people, different cultures, who are all together. You have Saudis, Hungarians, Vietnamese. They're all working together to cooperate in the small moon colony. And basically, could they do this very well, these separate cultures on Earth? No, but they can do it on the moon in very austere conditions. So I think Weir is trying to say space is going to be our savior if we do it right. Okay, and he's projecting views of the world, views of the universe that basically say space is good for us. Let's keep exploring. Let's keep using it. It's going to get us there.
Along the same vein, I think Andy Weir throughout all of his books does have a stance on scientists in particular.
Yeah, very much so.
Shows characters that are businessmen, political, that everyone kind of has these fighting factions and will put their own personal greed or history against each other. And that's why there's so much conflict. Versus scientists are the more logical, willing to put aside their personal background and will work for the common good. And that science is kind of the elevate above all. That science crosses boundaries, transcends borders, transcends history.
Yeah.
And throughout each book, typically, even if there is friction, the scientists from different nations will be able to come together, actually solve the problem. That's a theme throughout most of these books.
Yeah. And in this one in particular, you see scientists basically, they have no competition with one another, depending upon their culture that they came from. There's the Hungarian, and there's Svobo. There's hardly any mention whatsoever of his ethnic background, but no, he's a scientist and he cooperates. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting view, and I think you got a very good point.
It's a nice idea, especially. Sure. I mean, harkens back to your Star Trek era stuff. Like that's very much a theme of Star Trek, of, to your point, of like space being the next frontier of we can be a united people. It doesn't matter your backgrounds. It's a fresh start. And the same thing with science above all, of science actually will. So to me, I think it's a nice idea. Personally, I find that the most fantastical of scientists. I don't think are above us all. They're people just like you and me. And they also have problems with like their own history, cultures. Like, just because you're a scientist doesn't mean you suddenly have lost your culture and your history and the frictions between people. So it's a nice idea, and I wish it were more true. But that I find is the most fantastical element.
Yeah. Well, one thing I think that basically another thing that Weir does, he promotes physics. Okay. Basically, this understanding of science, that all people should have a basic understanding so that they can understand how to get along, say, whether it's in space, whether it's on the moon, whether you're mining. And he puts a lot of effort into having the average person, and a person like me, I'm very liberal arts oriented. It challenges me. It challenges the reader to basically, you get into physics, which basically controls life itself. Okay. It's not just, hey, the sun doesn't shine just for a reason every day and you don't have to worry about it. No. There's reasons why things work, and there's reasons why things fall apart. And he goes pretty well into that. So physics dominates this book as well as the other two novels he's written.
It's honestly a big reason why I like Andy Weir's work so much is I think he makes science really fun to understand. And
I totally agree.
Not just that he writes in a way that laymen can understand the terms. Of course, I'm a layman. I'm curious about science, but like,
I'm more of a layman than you are.
But I enjoy it. But goes a step further. He's not just writing for a layman audience.
Right.
He also does it in such a way that I think makes you very curious because you want to know more, and he adds enough clues where you want to like look outside of the book of like, oh, is that how that works? And I'm always looking up something on the internet after I read an Andy Weir book, just because I want to know more. And you got a very good point. Sparking scientific curiosity is an important aspect to to all of his works, and I love that he does that.
And another thing, being a liberal arts nerd, much more so than a scientific nerd, I can recall when you go through a chemistry class or a physics class, it was dry, and you go through the class and you struggle to learn it, and you say, and you think to yourself, when am I ever going to use this stuff? Well, in Weir's novels, those people use the science every moment of every day. That's how they survive. That's how they improve things. That's how they're successful, is because they understand the physics involved with living where they are and doing their job. Whereas we here on Earth, us poor kids who went to college and basically we studied English and history, and we have no concept of like, hey, what's science going to do for me? Hey, nothing. Hey, I'll get my 8 to 5 job. I'll write stuff. I'll go to meetings, stuff like that. These guys live in a world of physics, and they make it realistic. So in that respect, I agree with you.
Totally. Do you think Andy Weir has anything to say with mainly the central character, with Jazz being very smart, has all this potential, but chooses, she's somewhat lazy, ultimately turns to crime, and the state where Artemis is trying to make the noble criminal of, hey, the bureaucracy kind of gets in the way of some things that actually to make the gears move, you need a little bit of grease, and the grease is crime, and like you need some good crime.
I think.
Is there anything saying about it, or is it just more, hey, that's a setting? He's not saying anything about it.
I think what he's trying to do in this novel, the other characters in the other novels are much more heroic, and they're much more solid. Jazz is basically, she's a broken character. She's got flaws. Even Jazz realizes it, but she's trying to overcome them to some extent. But she doesn't want to overcome all of them. She's overly sexual. Okay. She's nasty, as you mentioned. She treats other people like crud. She's a thief. She's a criminal in that respect. So, in a way, I think Weir is trying to present people a person who is realistic, more realistic of real life, as opposed to, hey, goody two shoes who's good in everything and tries her best and never does anything wrong.
Yeah.
So I think in one respect, I think that Jazz is just a reflection of Weir's effort to go ahead and make his character realistic, close to a normal person.
See, I'd actually disagree with you on this part, and we'll go right into characters.
Okay.
Actually, I completely messed up. What did you give the thought-provoking nature of it? I'm sorry. After that whole discussion.
I would give it a 4.
A 4? Really great?
Yes, I would.
I gave it a 2.5. A little disappointing.
Really?
I think his other books say a little bit more to this. I don't think it's, other than the theme of the world, I wish it said more about it. Especially since the central plot of it is just, to me, a lot of it is just bureaucracy bad, which, fair, but
okay.
I don't think it says too much.
Well, I'll tell you, the reason why I disagree with you is number one, is that maybe it's not as magnificent in scope as the other 2 novels. However, I think it's just more realistic. And I think his effort to go ahead and make Jazz into kind of a normal person who's got challenges in life, I think that says something that Weir is coming along as an author, that he can portray characters who are not totally outwardly good, but yet have some flaws in themselves, but are able to overcome them.
Well, getting right into characters, I also gave it a 2.5. It's probably the larger thing I have a disagreement with. To that big point is Jazz. I actually don't find her realistic at all. She has an archetype that I particularly don't like.
I gave her a 4.5.
You thought it was spectacular.
I thought it was spectacular because I thought that Weir developed her character very well. Maybe I didn't like Jazz. I get the sense that you didn't like Jazz. And no, she's in many senses, she's not likable. And she's got flaws, that's for sure. However, Weir develops her character very, very well. And he basically takes the effort to go ahead and portray her good side, her bad side, her flaws, and not initially. I mean, she's not trying to overcome her flaws at the first part of the novel. I mean, she's a criminal. She's a thief. She breaks things. She steals. But towards the end, she's trying to do the right thing. So you see a gradual shift in Jazz towards the end of the novel where she's trying to do the right thing, look beyond herself. At the beginning, she's all for herself. At the end, particularly that scene where she breaks the bubble and she basically gets the oxygen flowing, she's doing it for everybody else. She knows she's going to die, but she does it anyway. So I think Weir does a very good job of portraying that. So it's character development, I say. That's why I gave it a 4.5.
The reason why I put it so low, and it's not that low, I just find it disappointing. I don't think it's awful or even particularly bad.
Okay.
But if she was an actual bad character, and a bad person, she's portrayed in the beginning of the book as being incredibly selfish, supposedly, and mean to others and all these negative character traits. But the character we actually get is, and I find this trope annoying, of the character that has so much potential, is so smart in basically everything they do, but they don't apply themselves. And everyone kind of looks like, there's everyone around the character telling the reader that, they're so smart and they're they could do anything and ultimately a waste of their potential. I find that a very annoying character type. And then on top of this, we find out later that even as a criminal, she's incredibly noble. The reason why there are no guns in the city is because of her, that she ultimately doesn't need to change much. There's not a lot of, she was always self-sacrificing. She was always a noble character. It's other people didn't realize it. That is a character trait I don't particularly like, of the world is wrong and it's just the world that doesn't understand me. And to me, it's not about her changing. The actual character shift that she has is, in the beginning, she's far more individualistic and she's not willing to trust others.
True.
And by the end, she does the thing that she hates to do and actually has to trust others in a team. And even that, there's a handful of people in her team that she actually needed to bring on board.
Absolutely.
However, there's moments during the whole final heist that I don't even particularly know why they're there. It feels like they're just supposed to be hey, these are the characters you came across and what you need. In particular, like it's narratively important that her dad comes along for the team.
Absolutely.
But is he actually needed for the plot? No. She does this, like, it's, hey, do this important weld, which already been shown. She's great. She's an amazing welder. She could have done it herself. The EVA masters of when she's finally going out there with Dale,
right,
to go do the whole thing. He drives the cart out there. And then he drives it back. He doesn't help her. Like, there's no reason for him being there other than like, he's the backup. Like, if things go wrong, I'll need you. So why was Dale particularly brought in? He was brought in because narratively, he's the friend. We want to develop this relationship between the two. The handful of characters that were actually needed was Bob needed Bob for the distraction, to distract the employees at the train.
That's true.
And then Martin, her friend that is making the gizmos.
Absolutely.
Needed him. Other than that, though, she was already working with them before. So it's
here's
the most, that to me is a very different character arc.
Well, here's the thing about Dale. Yeah, Dale is kind of, in fact, I think like his character development is the weakest of everybody in the novel. But that particular scene, you go through this thing about the EVAs. The EVAs are basically very safety conscious. When the whole idea of Jazz going out by herself is a risk. Okay, if there's a problem, there's no help for her. There's no backup whatsoever. So the fact that Dale goes out with her on the final caper, okay, to destroy the smelter, that's an aspect where they're basically portraying just what they said they would have to do throughout the entire novel. That is, EVAs are always team-oriented. You always go out with a buddy. So Dale is the buddy. Dale is the buddy. Yes, he's a backup, but finally she's trying to follow the rules. Okay.
Is that the right thing? Yeah, she should. But I find the actual arc for her is not to become less selfish. It's not to become more noble and improve herself. It's to
take a look at this.
I need to trust others more.
Well, she needed other people. She had to get, probably in some ways. For example, why is Dale there? Well, Dale is there to save her in the end, okay, to flip her back over the other things and to bring her back to life. So in that one small aspect, you have to say Dale was essential to the team, at least as far as Weir's development of the characters and development of the scenes.
But there's a fundamental difference between, like, the plot structured around makes it necessary, and I find it more they're there for the narrative conclusion of, Jazz needs to trust people, rather than the more realistic of what would actually be the case. What are these characters necessary?
But don't you see this as the development of Jazz? Okay. Yeah, you're saying, you think, I'm getting a sense from you that you think that Jazz's more worldview and going outside of herself is kind of a put on at the end. No, I see this as a pretty effective development of Jazz as a character, as a person. So, yeah, she has troubles, but she initially starts out, the whole thing, she's on her own, she's doing this by herself. In the end, now she's bringing other people, because she kind of has to make it work. And it shows that, hey, she's developing a little bit herself.
But that's the difference. When you were talking about the character, it was more about how she needs to become less selfish, and she needs to develop and improve as a person that is slowly, gradually.
Yeah.
The reason I don't like the character as much is that's what I thought we were going to get. But on the later half of the book, we realized that, actually Jazz has always been this noble criminal, is actually doing all these other nice things, and that the town just needs to realize how much they need Jazz. And it's more about the recognition rather, like, that's my problem. If it's starting off saying like, hey, look, this character has a lot of flaws, and then by the end of the book saying like, actually those flaws aren't real, she's actually pretty great, and she's actually is already noble and not selfish, and all those things, that takes away the flaw and of her actually being a flawed character. And we're left with the only actual change for her is, I need to trust more people. That's like, I don't trust people, I need to trust people. That's the actual arc for her, rather than her growing as a person.
I guess
That's what I don't like.
I guess one of the things about Jazz as a character, yeah, she's not likable, but she has a reason for being bitter. Okay, she's living in a cubicle. Okay, she doesn't have a bunch of money. She needs money to go ahead and repair her father's facility, and she feels very bad about that. She's had a series of love affair disappointments through there. So she's a bitter person. And she's thinking, hey, where am I going to go? How am I ever going to get the larger cubicle here at one of these facilities and get a shower that's all to my own that I don't have to share in a communal shower facility? So towards the end, I see her kind of looking beyond those things and kind of saying, hey, I can be, but I don't have to worry so much about these small things, which are irritances in life.
But here's the problem. From the beginning, she's like, I need to make all this money. I specifically 400,000, blah, 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 blah. She had a specific number.
Specific number.
And you think, oh, she just wants money for herself. She's selfish. Right. No, she isn't. From the very beginning, she wanted that money to repay her dad. We find that out.
We try to find it at the end.
But that means from the very beginning, she's not fully selfish. She's actually very noble. From the beginning, that's what her goal was. It wasn't just for herself.
But don't all of us have kind of a hidden side to our personality and to our character that we don't necessarily reveal to anybody else?
I get that. But I feel we were taken away of, I don't like a character that is being presented like, hey, look, this is a flawed character. And then we find out they don't change. They just, through the story, we find out actually they're not flawed. They're basically, like, all the things you thought were flaws were actually good. And actually the character's really noble. It's always been that way. That's what I don't like. She becomes far more unrealistic. That's the thing I don't like about her character, and it is very disappointing.
Here's the thing about whether it's realistic. Development of a character, what causes a character to develop? Okay. Well, Weir does it pretty well. She has Jazz going through a series of fairly traumatic situations. Okay, she's basically, there's a guy that tries to kill her twice. She's able to get beyond it a couple of times. Rudy, the security officer, is on her butt trying to get a hold of her. And then finally, he kind of comes along and helps her out on a particular occasion. So little by little, there's something basically kind of going on where she has problems.
What is she changing toward? What lesson is she learning?
I think the lesson that she's learning is that she is part of a group. She's not an individual kind of out for herself. She is part of it. And whether it's she's in that bar, she's with Dale, she can get along with Dale a little bit better than what she's get before, even though he messed her over before. She can get along with her father. She can get along with people as opposed to being an adversary all the time. So I think even she becomes kind of a co-conspirator with the director of the facility, and tells her right up front, "Hey, you need a smuggler here who will smuggle in safe stuff. Okay, not that bad stuff. I'm that person, and if you work with me, I work with you." So she actually forms her. I think her whole thing and the whole thing of her character is that she overcomes her obstacles and she learns to work with other people.
The problem with it is I don't think she changes nearly as much as she proves to everyone else in the community that she is a noble person.
I think
that's a very different thing.
Maybe that is a different thing, but don't you think that's good of Weir to be able to actually put that into the novel, put that into the character?
It could be an interesting story, but I think it makes for a disappointing character. I would have rather had her actually be flawed, actually be selfish,
to be flawed all the way up to the end.
I don't like it when flaws are actually taken away magically through the story, of not committing to the flaw, of being told by Andy Weir that, hey, Jazz is really flawed and she's selfish, all these things, and then at the end of the book finding out, like, actually she wasn't selfish this entire time. She's actually been noble this whole time.
Oh,
she didn't just want for herself. She's been trying to help her dad. She's even as a smuggler, she has deliberately gone out of her way to kick out and beat all the other smugglers so she could corner the market and control for the access of firearms and special, like, flammable material. Like, she has been noble all along. That I don't like. I really don't like that for a character.
I don't think she's been noble all along. I think in the beginning, I think she was much more flawed than at the end. And personally, I think like it's okay in a novel. Here's the thing about a novel. This thing is supposed to end on a good note, and it does. Okay, she's successful. So at some point she has to succeed. Well, she has to succeed because she's working with other people. So I think that's the biggest, and I see that little by little as she goes along. For example, it's little by little. It's not just one big change magic moment at the end where she decides to work with other people and become more noble. No, she has to go to Svobo to go ahead and get some information on, hey, what's this wire here and how's it work? Okay. She's letting a friend kind of get in on some of the action here. She has to go to the one guy to say, hey, build me this widget, okay, that I can use. Another thing, hey, I need to borrow one of these little robots to get outside. She has to pay the person to use it. So she even goes to her father and says, hey, I need some acetylene equipment, okay, welding equipment. This is little by little that she's trying to do this. So
it's
in a way,
it's just a very different character. Her trusting others is very different from her overcoming her own like real flaws of being so it's a slight change. Imagine in the beginning that she wanted this money to actually go live the high life. Like that's what she wanted the money for.
Yeah.
And at the end of the novel, she realizes that it's not all about her, and she needs to pay for her transgressions and try to make recompense. And so she does give the money to her father and repairs the place.
But here's the thing.
That I think would be better than just saying like, oh, that's what she wanted to do all along.
There's in this novel, there's a couple of destruction moments. Okay. The big one is the harvesters initially. Okay. And she fails. Okay. But she's all alone. She does it by herself. She doesn't let anybody in on the action. She lies to people to get stuff. She gets some equipment from her father. She lies to him about that. But she's on her own. She's doing it. She goes out there. She messes it up. Okay. Barely gets back with her skin intact. And then the first moment after this fail thing is getting Dale, who confronts her and says, hey, don't tell on me. Let me get away with this thing. Well, he trusts her. So here's a glimmer. Here's a glimmer. Here's a person that acts actually on my side, who's not going to turn me in just because I'm a jerk. So you see little moments, and basically it gets to the end, the last destruction, trying to destroy the smelter. Well, she's got a whole team there to help her. And possibly in her own mind, she said, hey, when I tried to do it by myself without any help, it got messed up. Now I got a better chance of success, and this one's got to work if I have a team here to back me up. So,
yeah, I do think that is ultimately what her arc is just trusting others.
Okay.
I think that's significantly less than what we were promised in the beginning. And I don't like flaws being taken away post hoc in a story.
All right.
That's why I was disappointed.
I hear you're disappointed, but I wasn't.
Okay.
But hey,
let us know down below who's right, who convinced you.
And you guys can decide for yourself. Is Jazz a flawed character? Is she expertly developed?
Yeah.
Does Weir do a good job, or is it forced at the end where she becomes noble? Yeah. You guys can decide. Read the novel.
Just read the book. Let's go on to plot. What did you give that?
Well, plot, I would give plot at best a 3. And maybe even something like 2.5.
Okay. So didn't land as well for it, but I thought the twists and turns and the pacing was really good. That kind of all goes together with plot.
Here's what bothered me about the plot, is that you're introduced to this character who's a work person, a minor level porter on the moon. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, what do these people do on the moon? Okay, well, they support tourism. And that's basically projected as the main industry of this moon colony. And I was just thinking, that's unrealistic. Why would getting to the moon is expensive. Even in this time frame, this is slightly in the future. It's less than what it would be now, and it's commercially available, but still it costs money. And I'm just thinking, there's no way that you could get a moon colony to support itself just on tourism. So I'm thinking, well, what else do they do? Okay, well, they make aluminum. The aluminum is basically to build the structures themselves. That's what it comes down to. They don't export the aluminum to the earth. At least there's no mention of it. So I was thinking, like, there needs to be an economic angle as to why this moon colony is being supported by Earth, and I didn't buy the idea of tourism. Now Weir, at the end of the novel, has a little postscript where he explains his concept, where tourism is a viable function for far outreaches in space. I just don't buy it. So in that respect, the plot to me was a little bit thin at the beginning. It develops, it gets better. If you accept the idea that, hey, you can have this expensive moon colony supporting itself just for tourism. If you buy that, okay. I didn't buy it.
I would say that falls far more under world building of the setting. Do you find that setting believable, and do you immerse yourself into it? As far as the plot goes, as like the A and B plot, of the A plot being the heist and her going through, like,
I think
the moment to moment of her getting the job for the heist, and then, oh, I'm going to go destroy the harvesters. Oh, that fails. That kind of plot of what she does. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's pretty good. I mean, here's a gal that's desperate for money. This guy offers her 1 million slugs. That's moon currency, which is much more money than she ever thought she'd earn otherwise. So, okay, she's going to go along with it. And also, there's a bit of a criminal in her. So she's not going to go delve too deeply into, hey, what are you going to have me do this for? She doesn't. She just wants the money. So that, in that respect, I think that's well done. And then, because of the twists and turns in the plot develops.
Yeah.
Plot develops. It doesn't slow down ever. She gets into trouble. She gets away. She runs into more trouble. She gets away. Finally, she kind of figures out, hey, here's what's going on. Now, and this gets back to the noble aspect. How do we fix this whole issue with the moon to make it viable and to keep it from becoming a corrupt society? Oh, we'll destroy the smelter. That's the nobility coming out. But once again, I thought the plot moved along pretty well. It developed. It had twists and turns, but it didn't slow down.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that respect, I think it was pretty good. But like I say, and you're calling it the worldview. Mm-hmm. I just disagree with the way the moon is presented as a viable colony. So that's what bothered me. In fact, I kind of went back to the first part of the novel to try to find out what's the real reason why they're on the moon. What are they doing there? What good is it for the Earth? Yeah.
I'll try and give an explanation for that in a second. But as far as plot as well, I gave it a 3.25. I think it was, somewhat good, pretty good.
All right.
I think the best aspect of it is its pacing. It chugs along and really fast to read. So
it does.
Keeps your attention.
It does.
I do feel a bit of the hand of the author, especially talk about the moments and emotional impact of, is the scene happening because it makes the most sense for these characters and doing it, or is it that's what the plot demanded to happen?
Okay.
That seems like I felt the hand of the author in a few of those key moments, like, why are some of these characters at the end? Like, yes, it does work out, of course, because Dale is needed by the end to save Jazz. But was Dale needed to bring in for this moment, or was it more of a hand of the author of, oh, I want this character to have, like, does it make the most sense for the character, or is it the author wants the relationship between Dale and Jazz to improve, so you need to have him and also someone to save her at the end? I felt it was more for that reason. And that similar thing to other moments in the plot.
To me, it's very logical why Dale is involved at the end. Number one, Dale's the one that caught her when she tries to sneak back in after the first botch thing. At this point, no other EVA qualified people will touch her. She's a criminal. She's nasty. She's bad. Okay, she destroyed things. Where Dale has already kind of let her off the hook once. So and she needs somebody else to go out with her on this mission. She can't go by herself. There's got to be 2 people with the EVA. So Dale becomes important in that respect. So I don't think Weir is forcing anything at this point.
But the same thing with her dad. Her dad didn't need to be there. The plot justification is, hey, I need the best weld. This is very important, so exactly. I need the best welder. But it's already been shown she's a great welder. And her welds are, like, she's able to weld in space. Like, she does just fine. Doesn't seem to be necessary. But what was necessary was, hey, we want to foster a relationship between her and her father and to reconcile. Like, that's why he was there, not plot reason.
I think there's that, and there's a corollary reason. Jazz goes out initially, and she borrows some equipment for her dad to destroy the harvesters. Okay, so here's some of her dad's equipment is gone. She has to abandon it out there. So the dad already knows, hey, equipment's gone. Well, for the second mission. Now, can Jazz get welding equipment from anywhere else? No. She's poison. Okay, no other welder's going to loan her gear. She's got to get gear from somebody to destroy the smelter at the end. So she has to go back to her dad once again to ask for more gear. And in this respect, she knows she needs a very, very strong bubble that will basically glom onto the smelter. So does she?
That's a good point. The fact that she doesn't have she
has no other option. She has no other option to get this gear that she
point.
needs. All right. So bringing her father in, a good corollary is that you get this warming of the two, the daughter and the father. Mm-hmm. That's a very good corollary, and probably Weir says, "Hey, this is a great thing to add in there." Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Well, that's a very fair point with her father as well. Okay. Still, I did feel the hand of the author a little bit with the plot, but not significantly. I still think it's fairly good. Especially pacing. This is a really fun book, well-paced. The twists and turns, I think, got me a little bit of some of them, not as much, but I liked some of the changes of course, everything goes wrong. The, what's his name? Tron gets killed and finding out why. And I like the little plot of
absolutely.
The whole thing is this aluminum contract is not important. It's the free energy.
Sure. It's
to
free
make
oxygen.
other stuff and for the oxygen, and that this refinery will be used for making this new future fiber optic cable with zero light lost. Like that's the nugget. That's the secret sauce. But getting into the world building of like that being this fancy science magic that's the MacGuffin of the story, really.
Right.
Why everything is unfolding. To your point originally about the believability of the world, I think it did a great job with the director, I believe, Fidelius?
Yeah, the Kenyan.
What was her name?
The Kenyan lady.
I apologize for mispronouncing names.
Yeah.
But she actually explained it pretty darn well because Jazz says like, oh yeah, we're mostly about tourism. That's how we make our money. And the director says, no, we don't. Tourism is like, tourism is a good chunk of our economy, but it isn't what makes this viable. What makes this viable is tourism is one aspect, but it's the fact that when we bring in more people and as we grew our population, we trapped their money. Whenever someone leaves Earth, they don't leave their money on Earth. They sell everything and we get it.
That's right.
And so it's a Ponzi scheme where as the population grows, it brings in money and the money can settle there. But as an economy, when the population is stabilized, they don't have anything. Tourism isn't enough. And so they do bring that up of tourism is not sustainable for an entire economy. And so that's why this fancy fiber optic cable is so important, because it would be a value, like the valuable export from the moon.
From the moon to the Earth. In fact, that in itself, that's very, very realistic, because there's some things that can be developed and manufactured in a zero-G environment that you cannot do on Earth. And that's well known in physics. Mm-hmm. So, and they bring up the point of the fiber optic cable having no light lost and being much more durable. Yeah, that'd be a big seller here on Earth. Absolutely. They could do that.
That would actually...
Yeah. So that's realistic. But bring up another thing.
I always do love Andy Weir seems to always have like at least one little magic sci-fi thing. You know, the MacGuffin thing. In every book, there's the thing that like it just doesn't exist, but plausible enough. Like it's the thing you just have to buy. It's not actually a realistic thing, but you buy it for the fun of the story. I always enjoy those.
Just to bring back to kind of the spoiler of this place and the plot development. The director of the facility is a Kenyan lady, okay, who's a very, very smart, very intelligent woman. And Kenya basically is the Earth population where basically the moon colony came to be from. And this is portrayed by Weir in the novel is that here's a nation that basically took an opportunity because they're near equator launch point where they could launch rockets from. So that's an advantage, but also that they were much more innovative in terms of their laws, rules, regulations, and being able to get things done. A bit unrealistic given today's politics. Is Kenya anywhere close to a first world country? Not even close. And I've been to Kenya myself. It's got a long way to go before it becomes scientifically one of the leaders of the world. But
I wouldn't even say the scientific part's more. It's the fact that the Kenyan government could get it together
to do this type of thing. That's unrealistic, but that's part of Weir and his novel and becoming believable in that respect. So, however, once again, it's taking many disparate cultures on Earth and putting them together in a moon colony, and they're all work together.
Mm-hmm.
So so it adds to Weir's kind of political mystique that, hey, in space, you can make things work with a whole bunch of different people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, to that point, I gave Worldbuilding a 3.75. Really good. This really comes down to Andy Weir's ability to explain the scientific possibility of it and his world building of how these things would function. It's always enjoyable. Definitely the best aspect to me.
I gave it a 4. I said it was great. I said it was great.
Yeah.
And that world building, because he was able to make everything kind of work together. One of the interesting vignettes is that you only see one security officer for this little colony of 2,000 people. And early on in the novel, Rudy, who I think is one of the better developed characters in the entire novel, confronts a worker and says, "Hey, your wife came in with a bunch of bruises, contusion, broken rib, this type of thing." And the worker says, "Yeah, she's clumsy." Well, it becomes fairly quick within the conversation that, hey, this guy beat his wife up. Well, Rudy, basically without much explanation, fairly quickly punches this guy in the jaw, knocks him to the ground, gives him several bruises, knocks his head around, and basically says, next time your wife comes in with these types of injuries, you're going to get the same the next day from me. Do you understand? Yes. Well, there's no arrest. There's no putting him in jail. There's no trial whatsoever. Here's a security officer who basically resolves the issue fairly quickly. Okay, this guy may still hate his wife, dislike her, but is he going to beat her up again? Probably not. Probably not. And it's an interesting vignette and probably one of Weir's ideas of saying, hey, let's make a better society here by cooperation. But this guy is a very effective security officer, and he's the judge, the jury, the executioner. He takes care of everything. So.
Which we didn't get into him in characters, but I thought it was funny of not hypocrisy, but kind of.
Okay.
He's the guy that's by the book.
By the book, absolutely.
Gotta follow the laws, gotta follow the rules, and yet, in terms of punishment, like him beating up that guy, there's no rule for that. Like it's street justice. He's in.
Well,
and again, this is the world building aspect of because it's a moon colony, they're not a nation. They don't have laws. They don't even technically have currency. That slugs are actually like basically the weight of transfer, like some complicated thing of like it's not an actual currency. They don't actually have laws. They don't have a governor or anything. They have an administrator that basically like a small time mayor. So
dictator,
Rudy,
actually.
Yeah. But it's all on these business contracts, but there's no actual laws per se. So there's no jail. There's no judicial system. And so Rudy, even though he's like, oh, we must follow the laws and the rules in the book, he doesn't really have a book to like follow. You know what I mean? Of like, where in the book does he like, according to subsection X, you hit your wife in the head, so I'm going to hit you in the head. Like,
oh no.
No, it's just street justice.
That's right.
And so that's a funny duology with the character.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It's a funny duology, but at the same time, like he's a Marine, he's authoritarian, he knows his job, he's been given a certain amount of authority.
Duality, not duology.
Yeah.
My
and
bad.
Also, here's the other thing: this guy doesn't have a jail. He's got a very, very small holding cell, so he can't put a whole bunch of people in jail or give them punishment. And also, it's a small colony. They have everybody there works. They have a job. Do they have room for a courtroom, for judges, for lawyers to do that? No. So he takes care of things. Now, evidently murders occur very infrequently, and fortunately so for the colony. Hey, anybody that's caught doing a murder, they just send them off to Earth. Do they execute them? No. The worst punishment in this colony is to be exiled from the moon.
Yeah.
So
there's something to it of, historically speaking, there's throughout Earth's historical development.
Okay.
In places of the world that are resource rich and have a lot of resources, have very temperate weather, have abundance of food,
right.
Things that make it easier to live, humans actually will fight a lot more. There's more ease of conflict.
Sure.
There will be more warring factions. Corruption is a lot higher. Versus you look at some of the areas with desperate climates, or the climate is an enemy. You look at like
resource poor
in the Nordic countries type of deal. The homogeneity of culture is far more important, because like
together.
You can't. If you don't work together, you die.
That's
and
true.
This is a good example of even Jazz, the criminal. Like when there's a fire going on, everything drops. Everyone is in emergency mode.
Sure.
Like everyone is trained on safety precautions, because everyone has to follow these. Everyone has to work together on at least some of these things, or everyone dies. So that, like, a harsh environment can allow potentially different, like, warring groups of people to actually, like, forces them to work together, or everyone dies.
It's a very good point.
So
a very good point.
There's some believability of why these 2,000 people from all these different countries and cultures, with actually, like, cultures that are, like, and countries that are enemies.
They could be antagonistic.
But
absolutely.
You can't do that on the moon. That behavior is unacceptable, or else everyone dies.
They have to work together. Everybody's got a role.
So, but I mean, that's also part of the. That's like that's a factor the military takes advantage of when you put, especially like in boot camp, you put your group of soldiers through intense environmental strains to actually cause them to bond together, and that allows and cohesion.
Yeah, the military, it's very, very similar. You get put into, if no one goes into the military as a rogue actor on their own. No, everybody has to work as a team, whether it's Air Force, Navy, Army, Marines, whatever. And this is very, very similar on this moon environment. They're a team. They have to work together. They at least have to cooperate. They may not have to work together, but they will have to cooperate. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that went into it to me. I liked those little aspects of the slugs not being real money. There's not actually any real laws, because it's not a country. And so how this would even operate was really fun to explore for me.
Right. Yeah. In fact, of course, they don't have any money. They have a handheld device they call a gizmo. And the gizmo basically has their money on it. They communicate with it, and they use it to go into and out of doors, which they're allowed to do. One of the ones where they're allowed to. So yeah, it's a bit of sci-fi. It's a bit futuristic, realistic, maybe not, but it works. It works in this novel.
Now, the last category here, prose. What did you give the prose of this story?
Okay, I gave it a 3. It's
fairly
good.
Neutral.
Fairly neutral once again. The one thing that I found, and like I said, this gets back to like who would appreciate this novel. The coarseness of the language bothered me in a few cases. I didn't think it was totally necessary. Although, on the other hand, Weir, as in the other novels, he ad-libs quite a bit. When Jazz says something that's a bit suggestive, he ad-libs a little comment in there, kind of talking directly to the reader as opposed from the characters, which is interesting. It's funny, and it works pretty well. So he has a pretty good angle at it. It's but I thought the coarseness in the language detracted in a couple of cases. I didn't think it was necessary. And
to be fair, that does seem to be Andy Weir's style, both in all three.
Yeah.
Ironically, the one exception is Project Hail Mary. That character is deliberately not crass with his language.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is fun. Honestly, it does make him very cute.
But like, for example, there's some points where I think like the coarse language is pretty good. Like, for example, in The Martian, one of the best lines in The Martian is Mark Watney saying, "We're gonna have to science the shit out of this problem." Okay, so I mean, it's very good, and like, you know, it's unexpected, but it's true and it's funny. Okay, so and another one is where Watney is actually finally talking to one of the Earth people, and he's on a world microphone, so everybody's listening, and he says, "What the f do you guys think you're doing?" And the guy on Earth he's talking to says, "You know, please be careful with your language. You're talking to the world right now." So it's funny. It's funny when he does it. In this particular novel, I thought it was a bit overdone in terms of the coarse language. That was my feeling.
Yeah, to me, I give it a 3.25.
Okay.
Fairly good, but yeah, I think in his other novels it was better written.
I would totally agree.
Some of the descriptions in this novel, as far as some of the describing the scientific concepts, very good.
Excellent.
But as far as the descriptions of the world and the setting, not as good as some of his other novels. But the biggest detractor for me is the dialogue. I don't think the dialogue is nearly as funny, witty as his two other novels.
True.
I think the back and forth between some of the central characters in Project Hail Mary, some of the best dialogue that I've read. I loved it. Like, it makes you fall in love with those characters of like unique identities. This, not so much. And to some degree, I agree with you. Like, the crass language, I think works well for certain characters.
Not so much.
But if it's just kind of there to add into like, haha, we're adult, doesn't work as well.
Yeah, I agree.
It's flavor. It should be. It's flavor. Spice. Well, if it's the whole story, I'm like, it's oversalted.
If you only use it infrequently and it occurs every once in a while in moments of great stress within a novel, okay, understand, and that's understandable. That's real life. But to use it frequently like it is, it's overdone in that respect. So I would say, Andy Weir, you can cut back on the coarseness of your writing next time.
Don't displease my dad. Fix it for him.
All right.
But hey, that's the book Artemis by Andy Weir. Now, over our discussion, have you changed your mind on any of these categories? Has it given any thought, or you about settled? You feel about the same?
Well, okay. No, I give you some points in terms of looking at the development of Jazz as a noble character. Maybe that's not carried for. Maybe that's forced a bit towards the end, and it's for the purpose of coming to a great conclusion and a successful end to the novel. So she does have flaws, and I think Weir does that pretty well. But I would agree. I think you got some points to be made there that her nobility, particularly at the end, is a bit forced. Okay. And however, this is only about 350 pages long. Yeah. It might take a little bit longer to go ahead and do a gradual shift towards nobility over a couple of years. She only has 1 week to go ahead, and 1 week to become noble. Yeah, that's pretty good if you can do it.
Well, you changed my mind a little bit on the plot. You gave some good explanations of why some of these characters were there, especially in the final scene, that I really didn't think about, that I felt it was far more of the author's hand in there of like, I want these characters to be there because they're important characters and I want rather than being necessary. You explained it very well of why they actually were necessary for the plot.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
All right.
But hey, let us know down below what you think about this book, about the video. Did we get anything wrong? Did we get anything right? Let us know. And let us know down below what book you want my dad to come on for next. We've covered all the Andy Weir books so far. So what other novel would you like us to cover?
Hey, I enjoy being on the show. And if you want me back, please let me know.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.